My son forgot to hang up. I heard him laughing. She's too stupid to realize what's really going on. So I quietly ended the call, canceled his mortgage, and froze every credit card. A week later, I'm glad you're here. Stay with me until the end. And tell me, what city are you watching my story from? I want to know just how far it's traveled. The kettle was still screaming when it hit me. My whole life had been slowly falling apart behind my back. I can see it like it just happened. Me sitting at my kitchen table, the sun creeping in through the lace curtains, a half-stirred mug of chamomile by my hand. One of those soft moments you'd hold on to tighter if you knew how fast it could vanish. The call wasn't meant for me. It was Troy, my son, my only one, on the line with Lacey, his wife. They asked me to hang on while they worked something out with the mortgage company. And of course I stayed. Why wouldn't I? I had just wired the final payment on their house. Every last dime. The home I helped them get for their family, for my grandson's future. It was supposed to be a gift, a legacy. I didn't see it coming. It was a setup. First came the laughter, soft and distant, like thunder far away. Then Troy's voice, still so familiar it hurt, cut clean through me. She's too dumb to know what's really happening. He laughed, easy, like it was nothing. The way people talk when they think they're alone. I couldn't move. My spoon dropped to the floor, but I barely noticed. Then Lacey jumped in, her voice light, almost playful. Honestly, she basically handed it over. It was pathetic. I couldn't breathe. The air in my kitchen turned thick, pressing on my chest, like a fog creeping in slow. She thinks she's helping, Troy said with a snort. It's perfect. As long as she keeps signing where we tell her, who cares what she thinks? My hand hovered above the phone, shaking. I could have hung up right then. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't heard it, to hold on to the lie like a kid clutching a worn-out blanket that doesn't keep them warm anymore. But I didn't. I stayed. I let every word hit me, cold and steady, until the truth sank deep and settled into my bones. My son, the boy I raised on my own after his father, Russell, died too young. The man I gave everything I had left. He saw me as nothing more than a tool, something to use. That was it. The betrayal didn't come in screaming. It didn't crash down like a storm. It crept in slow, like winter slipping through old window panes. I pressed the end button. The call dropped. The kettle was still wailing on the stove. I turned it off with hands I could barely keep steady. My eyes landed on the little glass jar of lavender tea Lacey gave me last Christmas, her favorite. Even that felt like a lie now. Every smile, every sweet hug, every "we couldn't have done this without you" dripping off her lips. I had believed all of it. Thought I was part of the foundation. The steady hand. The loving grandma. The proud mom they could count on. But really, I was just their target. The floral curtains at the window fluttered in the breeze. My house, the one Russell and I poured years into, fixing it up between work and Sunday afternoons, suddenly felt like it didn't know me anymore. I set my teacup down. It rocked a little, catching a line of sunlight on the rim. Not anymore, I said under my breath. It wasn't anger. Not yet. That would come later. This was colder, sharper, like glass, smooth on the outside, but cut too deep if you weren't careful. That same morning, I'd been at the bank, smiling, shoulders loose, with pride, watching their mortgage get paid off for good. The teller, Callie, I think, handed me the receipt with this big, bright grin. Probably figured I was just a sweet grandma helping her kids get a fresh start, if only she knew. After that, I drove to their place, thinking about Troy's grateful smile, Lacey's emotional hug, my grandson tearing through the living room like nothing in the world could touch him. It wasn't just a house to me. It was love, security, the kind of future Russell and I always pictured for them, and they flipped it into a scam. Funny thing is, I used to hear Russell in my head every time I wondered if I was doing too much. That gentle voice teasing me, warning me, "Don't spoil them too much, Marlena, they gotta stand on their own." I'd hush that voice. I thought love meant giving until it hurt. Turns out it means being valued and respect. They trashed that the second they saw how easy it was to take what I gave. They didn't break me with noise. They broke me with silence. But me, I won't. Be quiet. You ever look back and realize the red flags weren't subtle? They were damn near hitting you in the face. Yeah, that was me. Troy and Lacey didn't rope me in overnight. It was slow, like a frog in a pot. You don't notice the water heating up until you're cooked. After Russell died, 7 years now, the house went still. 41 years together, and suddenly the bed felt too big. The kitchen too empty. The TV sounded hollow. Troy filled that space. At first, it felt like love. The same closeness we had when he was little. He called every day, brought groceries, fixed broken stuff. He said it once in the garage, standing by Russell's old workbench. "We're a team now, Mom. You, me, and Lacey, family, sticks together." I clung to that like a life raft. Now I see it for what it was, the first strand in the web. The money part didn't come right away. They warmed me up to it. "Mom, it's just a signature," Troy had said over Sunday coffee. "We're still saving, but this loan gets us closer to the down payments. You'll be co-owner, obviously. It's basically your house too." Lacey sat next to him, hands folded sweet, like a Hallmark daughter-in-law. "We couldn't do this without you, Marlene." She said it with wet eyes like it broke her heart to even ask. "It means everything." I signed. Russell would have asked questions, dug into the fine print, but me, I wanted to believe in my boy. The second time, it was renovations, the nursery. Lacey flipped through Pinterest boards, soft yellows, tiny animals in trees. "This is your grandson's room, Marlene, your legacy." Legacy. That word hit hard. I signed again. The third time, a business loan. Troy, all charm and confidence, selling me on some dream of family wealth. "This is for all of us. Mom, you'll benefit too." By then, it felt like routine. They fed me love, respect, shared plans, and I swallowed it all. The power of attorney, framed just the same. "Only for emergencies," Troy said. "You trust me, right?" Of course I did. The family dinners, the Sunday check-ins, the thoughtful birthday presents, the constant "we couldn't have done it without use." They never let up. Lacey once showed up with homemade banana bread and a card that read, "We're so blessed to have you." I think it's still shoved somewhere in the kitchen drawer, probably right next to the pile of lies they've been stacking while smiling in my face. You know that old saying, con artists don't just trick people, they make them thankful. That was me. And truth is, some part of me knew it. There were signs, quiet pauses when Russell's voice would echo in my mind, telling me to slow down, Marlene. Don't sign anything you don't understand. But I brushed it off. I needed to be useful again, to feel like I belonged. Grief makes you dumb like that. They made it all feel like family, teamwork, like we were in it together. So when I wired the last mortgage payment standing under those harsh lights in the bank lobby, it wasn't just the house I was paying off. I was buying into the whole dream. And that house, when I pulled up that morning, it looked like something out of a catalog. Fresh paint, trimmed bushes, a cute little swing hanging from the big oak out front. I remember thinking, it's perfect. Lacey was folding tiny baby clothes in the living room. Troy came down the stairs holding my grandson, barely steady on his feet, giggling like he didn't have a clue about the grown-up mess they were making around him. "You didn't have to do this, Mom," Troy said, smiling that crooked grin that always reminded me of Russell. "But we're so grateful." I just waved it off. "You're my family. That's what matters." And it did, until the phone call, until I heard them laughing, until every warm memory turned sour in my gut. That house, their perfect house, our house, started feeling like a stage. The nursery, the framed photos, the swing, they were just props. Set pieces meant to keep me looking one way while they took everything I had. I let them do it, but not anymore. I sat in my kitchen staring at that little lavender candle Lacey gave me last Christmas. Its soft flicker looked innocent. So did they. Grief opens you up, leaves you wide open. But anger sharpens you. I wasn't blind anymore. The next time they saw me, I wouldn't be the easy mark they thought they had. I'd be the mother they never saw coming, the one ready to take back everything. Funny how betrayal doesn't always hit like a hammer. Sometimes it drips in, slowly, and once you start peeling back the layers, it's hard to stop. I sat there, staring at my phone for who knows how long. My tea had gone cold. The only sound in the room was the wall clock ticking. Misty, my old tabby, sat on the window ledge, watching me like she knew exactly what was going on. The screen on my phone, still lit up with the last incoming call. Troy's name stared at me. If a name could carry weight, his would have crushed the whole screen. Every lie, every signature, every time I convinced myself I was still part of something real. That's when I remembered the files. A while back, Lacey had set me up with a cloud account. For transparency, she said. wearing that too smooth smile. You'll be able to see everything, Marlene. No surprises. They were counting on me never opening it. They figured I was too trusting, too old, too tired. But today, I opened it, fired up the laptop, logged in, and there they were, all those tidy folders, labeled like everything was squeaky clean, mortgage papers, savings, baby's future fund. It all looked legit, until it didn't. That's when I saw it, a folder I'd never noticed before. Business, ventures, I clicked, and what came up made my stomach knot so tight it felt like a rope was pulling through me. There were accounts under my name, not co-signed, not shared. These were full-on guarantor agreements for high-risk ventures, business loans, crypto accounts, even something called angel funding with me listed as the lead investor. I scrolled through screen after screen, transactions, wire transfers, stock trades, all traced back to me, my identity, my flawless credit, my trust. This wasn't a mistake, it was planned. They'd built an entire financial house on my name, and I didn't even know I was holding it up. If any part of it came crashing down, they wouldn't be the ones answering for it. I would. The whole house felt smaller suddenly. The walls, the family photos, the kitchen I'd loved for half my life. It all started closing in. I stood up, my hands were shaking, not from fear this time, but from that cold, razored anger that settles in when you realize you've been used, and you're done playing dumb. I walked into the little study off the kitchen. The one Russell always kept tidy when we still did things with paper, folders, labels, the whole system. The filing cabinet was still there, tucked against the far wall like he left it. I opened the drawers. Inside were the old documents, insurance forms, bank records, tax filings, all in Russell's clean, careful handwriting, detailed, exact. He never trusted the digital stuff fully. Paper has weight, he used to say, and for the first time, I got it. I started pulling everything out, lining it up against what I'd found online. The deeper I went, the more obvious it got. I'd handed them the keys to bleed me dry, the power of attorney, the shared accounts, the loan authorizations. I thought I was supporting them. They weren't building something for the family. They were building it for themselves. With me carrying the load, I let out a short, bitter laugh. I should have caught it. The signs were always there. The charm, the smooth talk about being in it together. And every time I hesitated, Lacey would bring over banana bread or Troy would show up holding the baby, smiling, saying, "We couldn't do this without you, Mom." I thought it was love. It was strategy. Not anymore. I printed every file, made backups, labeled each one carefully. If they wanted records, they'd get records. The old me would have cried, maybe begged for answers, but I'm not her anymore. I'm the woman they didn't count on. And they're about to find out who I am. I don't repeat mistakes. There's a strange stillness that comes once the shock fades. Not peace, more like cold, sharp focus, like when the tornado sirens finally stop and you realize the worst already hit. That's where I was the next morning, after seeing what Troy and Lacey had done. The kettle clicked off behind me as I sat at the kitchen table. Stacks of printed papers fanned out like a crime scene. Misty, my cat, jumped up beside me, curled herself into a ball with a sigh that sounded too knowing. Her green eyes stared right through me, as if she was saying, "Took you long enough to see it, Marlene." I didn't argue. The evidence spelled it out clear now. The investments, the shady loans, the forged signatures hidden under sugary words about trust and family. They'd built their fortune on my name, my credit, my grief, and the silence I gave them. But grief ends, and so does silence. I made a pot of tea, skipped the honey this time. Didn't want anything soft easing the edges. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened Russell's old leather notebook. The place still held that faint smell of coffee and ink, the kind that comes from someone trying to protect what matters. He'd kept everything neatly in order, the insurance papers from when we bought the house, account passwords, even scribbled notes in the margins, like check Marlon's pension forms by April, always one step ahead, always looking out for me. And what did I do? I handed over our safety net to the very people who treated me like I was just a speed bump in their plans. I grabbed a clean notebook and started my own list. Accounts I knew, check. Loans, check. Sketchy business, deals, check. Loose ends, too many to name. As I wrote, I could almost hear Russell's voice in my head. "Don't sign what you don't understand, Marlene." I missed him. His steadiness, his way of questioning everything. He never let emotions get in the way, especially when money was involved. Maybe, just maybe, some of that had finally rubbed off on me. Too late to stop the bleeding, maybe, but not too late to patch it up. I opened the laptop, pulled up the cloud accounts, and started tracking everything. Dates, dollar amounts, every single transfer. I downloaded every file, backed them up on a hard drive, and printed out copies for good measure, tucked them away in a locked drawer. By the time the sun dipped low, that neat little world Troy and Lacey had built for themselves had been poked full of holes. They just didn't know it yet. And I wasn't done. The next morning, I set up a meeting with Mr. Cohen, our longtime financial advisor. Russell trusted him for years. He had a sharp eye and a cold read for people, never one to fall for a pretty smile or a sad story. I dressed simple slacks, a soft sweater, nothing eye-catching. I wanted to look exactly like what they thought. I was a sweet, aging widow, someone easy to overlook. Let them underestimate me again. The drive downtown was quiet. The trees lining Briar Lane had started to turn, spilling red and gold across the pavement. Strange how the world keeps moving, like nothing's wrong when yours is crumbling. Mr. Cohen greeted me with that steady calm he always had. "Marlene," he said, standing to shake my hand. "What brings you in?" I didn't waste time. "I need to see every account tied to my name," I said, voice level, "all of it." His eyebrows rose, but he didn't push back. He opened his laptop and started pulling up the records. And as the numbers and pages loaded, piece by piece, the truth came into view. Troy had dumped liability all over me. Business loans, risky investments, even liens on property I never signed off on. I let the breath out slow. I wasn't even surprised anymore. Just clear. Mr. Cohen's face tightened as he read. "Marlene, I don't want to scare you, but this isn't just sloppy. It's deliberate." "I know," I said quietly. "And you didn't authorize this." I shook my head. He leaned back, fingers laced. "You're going to need a lawyer, immediately." I was already on it. That cold, sharp focus didn't leave me as I walked out of his office. The leaves crunched under my shoes, and the chill in the air cut sharp against my skin. They thought I'd stay blind, that I'd stay quiet. But I was done playing the fool, and this was just the start. It's strange how life arms you for the worst before you even see it coming. Russell used to say I was half squirrel, always squirreling things away, planning, keeping track of the details. I used to laugh it off, thought it was just one of my quirks. But now, it was the one thing holding me steady. By the time I stepped out of Mr. Cohen's office, I already had the first piece of my next move. Step 1, get legal backup. The next morning, I was sitting across from attorney Diane Mercer in her bright office downtown. She had that quiet kind of sharpness that made you straighten your back without realizing it. Early 50s, hair pulled back tight, eyes that saw everything. I laid it all out. The loans, the forged signatures, the power of attorney I'd signed without knowing what it really meant. And most of all, the recording, the one at the cafe where Troy, not realizing it, confirmed every rotten thing. Diane listened without saying a word, just the faint scratch of her pen moving across a legal pad, her face giving nothing away. When I finally stopped, she put the pen down, laced her fingers together, and looked me dead in the eye. "They've taken advantage of you, Mrs. Lawson." She didn't soften the words. It wasn't carelessness, it was intentional. Hearing her say it like that sent a bitter chill through me, but I wasn't crying anymore. "What can I do?" I asked, my voice steady. "We start by canceling the power of attorney. Today," Diane said. "That'll cut off their access right away." I gave a nod. "Then we freeze the shared accounts, launch a full audit, and flag every property title you're connected to. You still legally own the house." That was leverage they hadn't seen coming. "And the investments," she added with the faintest smile. "That's where we get creative." We spent 2 straight hours walking through every piece. Diane went step by step, showing me exactly how we'd build a legal wall between me and the mess Troy and Lacey had stirred up. It wouldn't be fast, it wouldn't be tidy, but it was going to happen. By the time I walked out of her office, a folder of signed documents tucked under my arm, the icy calm inside me had started turning into something more solid, resolve. The drive back was quiet. My neighborhood looked untouched. Trim lawns, front porches, American flags, kids on bikes, same as ever. But inside my house, something had shifted. Misty met me at the door, winding around my feet. I picked her up, her little body warm against mine, holding me steady. We're getting our house back, sweetheart, I whispered. Every inch of it. I made tea. Plain. No honey. Sweet didn't sit right anymore. Then I started dialing. Banks. The mortgage office. The brokerage. Each call stacked another layer of defense. Account locks. Limited access. Alerts on my file. Only the account holder can authorize changes. For the first time in months, maybe longer, I felt balanced. Just in time. That evening, my phone lit up. Troy, his name flashed like a warning sign. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up, keeping my tone easy. Hi, sweetheart. Hey, Mom, he answered, voice smooth like syrup. Too smooth. How are you? He asked. It was all surface talk. The baby, Lacey, the weather, but I heard it. That careful build-up, the way he always laid the groundwork first. Then, right on cue, listen, I've been thinking. His voice slid into that familiar sales pitch. There's this new opportunity, really exciting, but we need a little more liquidity to finalize our position. I smiled, reaching for the small recorder next to me and flipping it on. Liquidity. I repeated it quietly. Fancy word. He gave a little laugh. Nervous. It's nothing major, Mom. Just something short-term. Barely a favor. How much? 200,000, he said, casual as ever. It's just to bridge a gap. And with the way your accounts are structured, he added. Easy peasy. I took a sip of tea, eyes narrowing. Of course, I smiled and said, let's meet in person and go over everything. He paused, just a beat too long. I could almost hear him thinking. Ah, sure, he finally said. Tomorrow, work. Perfect, I answered. Somewhere public though. The baby gets cranky at home. He agreed, and we hung up. As the call ended, I set down my tea, the recorder light still blinking red. Troy still thought he was running the show, but tomorrow, he'd be stepping right into the trap I'd been quietly setting. And this time, I was the one holding the scissors. Next morning, I showed up at Stone & Steam 20 minutes early. One of those places that tries to feel laid back but costs a fortune. Reclaimed wood tables, Edison bulbs, hanging low, chairs that didn't match and probably cost more than my first car. I loved it. She called it rustic charm. I picked a table, tucked into the corner, back against the wall, full view of the door. Control, like Russell always said. In any conversation, know your exits. Know your angles. I used to roll my eyes at that. Turns out, habits like his are what keep you steady when the ground shifts under you. The waitress came by, college-edged, nice enough, and brought a pot of tea. I thanked her, eyes on the door, purse next to me, recorder already running inside. Troy showed up right on time. Of course he did. He was always prompt when he needed something. He spotted me instantly, that same old grin stretched across his face. The one that used to soften me when I was a young mom. Now it just made my stomach twist, but not the same way. Mom, he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. His cologne was heavy, expensive, probably paid for out of one of my accounts. You look great, he added, sliding into the seat across from me. Thanks, sweetheart. You too, I said, keeping my voice warm, rehearsed. The waitress came back, took his coffee order. We chatted a little. The baby, the weather, whatever work thing he was pretending to care about this week. But I could see it. Just under that easy smile, he was measuring the moment, figuring out when to shift the conversation to why we were really here. He didn't take long. Listen, Mom, he began, lowering his voice, hands folded like we were in on some big secret together. I really appreciate you meeting me like this. I nodded, let him feel safe. You've always been my rock, he went on, voice thick with sugar. You've always had my back, always believed in me, and I know you just want what's best for the family. I tilted my head. Of course I do. This opportunity, he said, leaning in a little, it's solid. We've done our due diligence. The return is practically guaranteed, but to lock it in, we have to act fast. I took a sip of tea. How much are we talking? 200 grand, he said, like it was nothing, like we were talking about a grocery run. Short term, totally backed by the assets we've built. With the accounts set up the way they are, it's all seamless. My stomach twisted when he said that. We've built, like I'd been part of the plan all along, like I'd agreed to any of it. As if he hadn't doctored every signature, reworded every document, twisted every bit of trust I gave him. I set my teacup down without a sound. You've already drawn up the papers, I said quietly. Troy grinned, quick and eager. Of course, you know me, always prepared. Better to have it ready just in case. And me, I'm in. Absolutely, he said, not missing a beat. We're a team. There it was again, the team speech. The one that used to make me pause. Now it felt as empty as everything else he promised. I let the silence settle between us just long enough for him to squirm. Then I rested my hand gently on his sweetheart. I said low, I really do appreciate you thinking of me. I mean that, but you know how I work. I like to be just as thorough. His smile flickered, barely, but I caught it. Of course, he answered fast, smoothing it over. Take all the time you need. I gave his hand a soft squeeze, then pulled away. He thought I was still under his spell, thought the playbook still worked. Flatter me, press the right buttons, walk off with whatever he came for. But he wasn't dealing with the same mother he'd fooled before. This time, I was writing the play. When we got up to leave, he hugged me. I let him, held him just a second longer than I needed to, feeling the weight of what a hug had become. No longer comfort but armor. The recorder in my purse blinked steadily. Every word, every lie, every line he rehearsed, saved. I watched him step out of the cafe, his shoulders squared like he'd won something, and I smiled to myself, because he'd handed me exactly what I needed. Funny how the brain clings to old habits, even as everything falls apart. The next morning I made tea. Same cracked mug, same quiet kitchen, but my hands were steady now. The sting of betrayal had settled into something colder, more precise. The folder Troy gave me was still on the table, untouched. I hadn't opened it yet, didn't need to. That recorder had already told me everything I needed to hear. Still, I'd read it. Being thorough was a habit now. But first, I called Diane Mercer, my lawyer. She picked up on the second ring. Morning, Mrs. Lawson, she said, just as sharp as ever. I take it the meeting went according to plan. I couldn't help a small grin. Even better, we practically laid out the whole scam on tape. Diane let out a dry, low chuckle. Good, let's get to work. We spent the next hour reviewing what was already in motion. Power of attorney, cancelled joint accounts, frozen, property transfers, flagged, and the new piece, the recording. Keep it safe, Diane said. Digital copy, back it up somewhere else. That might be the last nail if this ends up in court. It already has, I said quietly. He just doesn't know it yet. After we hung up, I sat down and opened Troy's folder, flipped through the pages, just what I expected. A maze of legal fine print, buried clauses, blank signature blocks, all crafted to make me believe I had a seat at the table while handing them total control. I read every line, marked up the pages, circled the traps, rights to seize my assets, backup guarantor conditions, waivers that would leave me personally on the hook. They had planned for everything except me catching on. The old version of me would have smiled, signed, maybe even thanked them for keeping her in the loop. But that woman's long gone. The new me. I picked up a pen and scrawled 2 words across the top of the packet. Nice try. That night, I took a slow walk around the house. The same house, weathered but still standing, that we'd built side by side. Those walls had carried our wedding pictures, our kids' milestones, the background noise of laughter and quiet Sundays. Nothing had changed to the naked eye, but everything had, after what I'd uncovered. They weren't just squeezing me for every cent. They were cutting me out altogether, weaponizing my kindness, my grief, and the trust I'd offered to slowly erase me from the life I helped build. But I wasn't backing down. I poured a glass of water, sat at Russell's old desk, and unlocked the fireproof safe underneath. Inside was everything they hadn't counted on me keeping. The original mortgage, bank records, insurance documents, and now, the notarized, official revocation papers. I placed the recorder in there too, tucked beneath layers of documents, and steel. Then I called the mortgage company. The woman who picked up, Corinne, was warm, professional. I told her I was initiating a quiet shift in ownership. She didn't pry, just updated my file, outlined the next steps, and set up a call with a senior rep. One by one, the pieces were snapping into place. By the time I hung up, the sky was already dark, the house still. Misty curled at my feet, her tail flicking like she could feel the change in the air. I stood, locked the safe, and whispered to myself, steady as stone. They think I'm still asleep, I murmured with a faint smile. Good, because when they realize I'm not, it'll be way too late. There's a certain rush in being underestimated. like holding a royal flush while the person across from you grins, thinking you've already folded. That's exactly how I felt walking into the cafe the next afternoon. Not hollow oak with its cozy wood beams and overpriced pastries. No, Troy had picked some sleek downtown bistro. Glass walls, polished chrome, chairs that looked like they belonged in a magazine spread and probably cost more than my weekly grocery run. He wanted to send a message. Look how polished, how confident, how in control he was. What he didn't know, I'd already burned through that facade. I spotted him right away, tucked in a booth near the back, cradling a cup of black coffee. His posture was easy, relaxed, but I saw it, the clenched jaw, the quick tap of his thumb against the cup. I slid into the seat across from him, my recorder already rolling quietly in my purse. "Hey Mom," he said with that well-practiced grin. "You look good." I smiled back, catching the shadows under his eyes. "So do you." The waitress came, took my tea order, left. Troy didn't waste a second. "So, had a chance to go through everything?" he asked, voice casual, but I heard the tension tucked underneath, the urgency. "I have," I said, reaching into my bag. "Very thorough." I handed him the same folder he'd given me days before, only now it was marked with red ink. Circles, arrows, notes in the margins, a full breakdown of every sneaky clause, every line he hoped I'd miss. His face twitched just for a moment as he flipped through it. "You've been busy," he said with a tight laugh. "Had some help?" I said calmly, watching the flicker of doubt cross his eyes. Diane's name didn't have to be said out loud. He felt her in every underlined sentence. Troy tried to stay smooth, brushing it off like nothing. "I'm glad you're taking your time," he said, still playing it cool. "It's a lot of money, and I wouldn't want you to feel pressured." I took a sip of my tea. "No pressure," I said. "But there's one thing I want to make absolutely clear." His eyes locked on mine, and I caught the flicker, his charm slipping just a bit. "You framed this whole thing like I'm in it with you." I started, calm, even, but I'm not. I paused and I let it hang there. "I'm just a name you needed. Something to boost your credit." Troy opened his mouth, but I raised a hand before he could speak. My voice didn't waver. I listened to the cafe recording. "Troy," I gave it a second to land. "Every word. Every time you called me naive. Every time Lacey laughed behind my back." His face went pale, like the blood just gave up and left him. "You what? You didn't hang up the phone, sweetheart," I said, soft and sure. I heard all of it. He froze. I saw it hit him, like a wave slamming into a wall that's already starting to crack. "You've been using me." I kept my tone steady, for years, dressing it up with sweet talk and baby photos. "And I let you." The silence between us turned sharp, delicate. "But here's the thing," I added, leaning in just a little. "I'm done." I saw the wheels turning behind his eyes, but the cool confidence was gone. He was scrambling, trying to piece together an exit. "I already shut it down," I said. "Your access, gone. Accounts, frozen. Property, back in my hands." I gave the smallest smile. "Your little empire, it's built on nothing." The waitress came by, set down my tea. The clink of the cup was the only sound between us. Troy just sat there, stunned, his whole story slipping through his fingers. You can't," he stammered. "Oh, but I did," I said. "Still come. And if you even think about pushing this, the recordings, the money trail, the legal documents, they're ready to go to the authorities." The color started coming back to his face, but in blotches ugly with panic. I took a slow sip of tea, then stood. "Have a nice afternoon, Troy," and I walked out. Left him sitting in the ruins of the lies he thought he had control over. You'd think a moment like that would feel like some kind of victory, watching a guy like him finally fall apart. Maybe a few years ago, I would have dreamed it would feel like winning, but walking out of that cafe, I didn't feel proud. I just felt done. Done pretending. Done doubting myself. Done holding together a family that only ever saw me as useful. The cool fall air hit as I stepped outside. It helped. I could still feel the weight of Troy's silence behind me, but I didn't turn around. I had bigger things waiting. By the time I got home, the final steps were already rolling. Diane filed the official revocation. Troy's power of attorney, gone. The banks confirmed the account freezes. The property transfers, all underway. Everything that had slipped out of my hands piece by piece, I was taking it all back. And Troy, he didn't even realize how fast it was unraveling. Not until later that night. It started with a phone call. Not to me, to Lacey. I know because about 10 minutes after the sun went down, I heard tires squeal into my driveway. The doorbell rang, loud, sharp, urgent. I didn't jump, didn't rush, just poured myself another cup of tea, slid the recorder into my pocket, and opened the door. Lacey stood there, arms crossed, eyes wild, caught somewhere between panic and rage. Troy paced behind her like an animal stuck in a cage, jaw clenched so tight I could almost hear the grind of his teeth. "We need to talk," Lacey snapped. I leaned against the doorframe. "Calm. Dewey," she hissed. "You froze our accounts. The credit cards, the business money, the mortgage company just called." I shrugged. "Just doing a little cleaning." Troy stepped up, face red with heat. "You've gone too far, Mom. You're tearing everything apart." I let out a soft laugh, dry as leaves crushed underfoot. "Tearing everything apart," I echoed, shaking my head. "No, sweetheart. I'm fixing what you wrecked." Lacey's polished look cracked for a beat. "We trusted you." "No," I said, even and steady. "You used me. There's a difference." Troy's hands balled into fists. "You're destroying this family." I met his stare without flinching. "You broke this family the day you decided I was a bank account, not a person." The silence that followed stretched long and tight, full of years of swallowed resentment and the kind of manipulation that stays quiet until it doesn't. "You've got one chance," Lacey said, voice pinched. "Undo this. Unfreeze the accounts. Sign the papers." I tilted my head, nearly amused. "Or what?" Troy's face twisted in frustration. "You'll regret this." I raised a brow. "Regret being used." "That's what I felt right after your little phone slip-up." Their faces went pale. "You think I don't have it all saved?" I went on. "The calls, the records, every legal thread tying your plan together. You left a trail even a blind man could follow." Troy started to speak, but I cut him off with one hand raised. "Go home," I said softly. "We're done here." Lacey scoffed and grabbed his arm. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, shutting the door. "I'm fixing one." The lock clicked, and for the first time in forever, the house felt still, steady, mine. They tried to scare me, but I wasn't that same grieving woman they played for years. I was rebuilding, one brick at a time, and now they were locked out for good. The worst part of betrayal isn't the lie, it's the mess that comes after. The weird tension in every phone call, the texts that show up at midnight, the sideways glances from people at the store who've heard just enough to make things uncomfortable. But by the end of that week, I stopped giving a damn. Troy and Lacey, though, they were cracking. It started with a voicemail, Troy's voice tight, trying to sound warm. "Mom, can we just pause all this? You're upset, I get it. But let's not make any rash decisions. We're family, remember?" I didn't answer. A day later, Lacey sent a text. "Marlene, this is all a misunderstanding, freezing the accounts. It hurts the baby's future too. You know." There it was, the baby card. Their favorite play. I didn't even open it. Next day, Troy called again, panic creeping in. "I can't touch the business funds. The credit lines are frozen. Do you get how this looks? What it does to my name?" Oh, I got it. By then, Diane had already filed every revocation, contacted every institution, and made sure Lacey State, the backbone of their plan, was fully protected. The walls they built around me, I brought them down. And while they weren't looking, I was building something of my own. The storm hit the following week. A letter from the mortgage company showed up at Troy and Lacey's place. I knew because Lacey called, her voice sharp, panicked. "They're saying the mortgage is being restructured, that we've got to submit new ownership records, that the payment terms might change." "What did you do?" I stirred my tea and watched the leaves spin. I protected myself. "That's all," I said. "You're putting everything at risk." "No, Lacey," I told her. "I'm reclaiming what's mine." She didn't stay quiet for long. The next morning, Troy was at my door. No flowers, no apology, just rage. I saw him through the front window, pacing like a man with nowhere left to go. The confidence he always wore like a suit had cracked. Now it was just fear and frustration. I opened the door, my phone already recording in my pocket. "We need to talk." His jaw was tight. "That's interesting," I said. "You didn't feel like talking when you were draining my accounts." His nostrils flared. "You're overreacting." "No, Troy. I'm being careful. We trusted you." "Stop." I cut him off, my tone steady. You trusted I wouldn't catch on. You trusted I'd stay quiet, that I'd keep giving up pieces of my life so you could build yours on top of them. He paused, just for a beat. You're making this worse than it needs to be. I gave a small smile. No, sweetheart. I'm just leveling the field. The air between us stretched thin. Listen, he said, trying to sound calm. You proved your point. You showed off what you could do legally. Can we just roll it back? Get back to how it was. I looked at him, really looked. Every line in his face I'd once known like my own. The trace of the boy I used to rock to sleep, but the man in front of me. He wasn't my son anymore, not where it counted. There's no going back, I said, only forward. His face tightened, like the truth was finally hitting. You'll regret this. He warned me before turning away, but as I closed the door and turned the lock, I knew regret wasn't mine to hold anymore. That belonged to him now. The thing about people like Troy and Lacey, they don't just fade out. I felt it the second the door shut. He stomped down the steps like the whole world was shifting under him. This wasn't done, not even close. And sure enough, by morning, the fallout had already started. A new voicemail from Troy, longer this time, less polished. You could hear the panic leak through every line. Mom, you don't get what you've done, he started, voice tight, low, like he was trying not to blow. This isn't just about us anymore. The company's in the middle of it. Investors are freaking out. You've wrecked everything, and your name's on half the documents. Don't forget, you're not untouchable here. I listened to the whole thing, let it soak in like dry ground soaking up rain. It wasn't quite a threat, not exactly a cry for help. It was that manipulative space in between. Just enough fear, just enough guilt, just enough push, counting on me to fall back in line. I saved the voicemail with the rest of my evidence, labeled it obvious. Diane called that afternoon. They'll try to push back. She said it with that steady tone of hers, level, unwavering. You've cut them off, took away their comfort zone. People like that, they panic, they get sloppy. I took a slow sip of tea, eyes fixed on the wind, tearing yellow leaves from the oaks outside. Let them panic, I said. I've spent years cleaning up after their messes. I'm finished. And just like clockwork, their nerves twisted into something uglier. First, a flood of texts from Lacey, syrupy sweet at first glance, but every word, laced with guilt trips. We're so hurt you don't trust us. This is tearing the family apart. Marlene, the baby misses you. Then things escalated. Lacey showed up on my doorstep. No makeup, no fake grin, just resentment, written all over her face like a bad tattoo. You've made your point, she snapped, arms folded tight, her foot tapping fast on the porch boards. Now undo it. I didn't touch the screen door. Didn't invite her in. Lacey, I said evenly, you never got it, did you? You thought all those dinners, the presents, the polite smiles, they were deposits, a kind of insurance. Keep me close, keep me quiet. She let out a sharp laugh, eyes narrowing. You're just bitter. No, I told her. I'm just awake now. The silence lingered. You're not gonna stay young forever. She said it low, voice like cut glass. You're gonna need help someday. Don't burn every bridge you have. I looked her dead in the eye. No flinch, no blink. You mean the bridge you and Troy drained me dry over? She shifted, not much, but enough to show the crack. You've lost your grip. She tossed it out there again. No, I said, soft and sure. I've finally taken it back. She left then, mumbling something as she walked off. I went back inside, turned the lock, and made a new note in the little leather notebook I keep. Tried intimidation, noted, filed. I knew they wouldn't quit, but every push just made their own trap tighter. I stayed put, in control. By the end of the month, it wasn't just Troy and Lacey feeling the heat. Their whole picture-perfect setup started to crumble. It's funny how people like them, always so careful with their image, never hear how loud their fall can get. It started small. Town gossip. A neighbor mentioned foreclosure notices in Troy's mailbox. One of Lacey's book club friends dropped a thinly veiled comment about money problems. I didn't brag. Didn't start rumors. Didn't need to. The truth has a way of showing up without help. Their accounts were frozen. Their access cut. Mortgage papers getting reworked officially. And day by day, their shiny little illusion of success kept cracking. They tried to hide it. Posted new baby photos online. All smiles and filters. Hashtags like family first and blessed, but the cracks bled through. Fights on the porch at night. Troy's car gone for days, probably chasing cash or plugging the leaks I'd uncovered. Lacey cutting coupons at the grocery store, her smile stiff as cardboard at checkout. Then came the real hit. The investigators showed up, not at my place, at theirs. I stood behind the sheer curtains in my living room, watching as 2 plainclothes officers knocked on their door that crisp Tuesday morning. Troy answered, face pale, eyes wary. Lacey stood behind him, arms folded, lips pressed tight. The officers kept their tone, even professional. I couldn't catch their words, but I knew the forms they were holding. Fraud, misuse of funds, stolen identity. All the things Diane and I had lined up for the case. It was playing out just the way we laid it down. They didn't glance toward my place, didn't acknowledge me standing there, but I caught the panic settle into their posture, saw the way their shoulders dipped once the door closed behind the investigators. This wasn't just a legal mess. It cut deep. Friends started pulling away. Investors vanished. Troy's perfect image, the self-made man act, cracked wide open. And through it all, I stayed steady, quiet, unmoved. A few days later, a box showed up on my porch, no sender, just my name, typed neat. Inside was a handwritten letter from Troy, the first thing he'd put to paper himself in years. You could smell the desperation. Mom, I never wanted this. I made mistakes. I was trying to build something for us, for the baby. You've always been my rock. Please, let's fix this. We're still family. No taking responsibility for the lies. No straight apology for the damage. Just carefully phrased guilt and half-truths. I folded the letter, filed it in the evidence folder, and locked it in the safe with the rest, because words don't count for much anymore. Actions do. And mine, they were finally loud enough. Funny how fast the quiet returned once the chaos burned out. No more late-night calls from Troy. No knocks on the door. No guilt-soaked texts from Lacey, just stillness. It could have felt empty, but it didn't. It felt right. Diane called that Thursday afternoon. Her voice carried that steady, anchored.com. I'd leaned on these past weeks. The state's case is progressing, she said. Troy's officially being investigated for identity theft, illegal financial activity, and taking advantage of an elder's finances. I let out a long breath, eyes on the bare oak branches outside swaying in the yard. And Lacey, Diane paused. She's been listed as a cooperating party, probably cutting a deal to dodge charges. I gave a nod. No surprise. Lacey was never one to face consequences. The second things went sideways, she ran. Always picked survival over loyalty. They're in panic mode, Diane said, trying to contain the damage, but it's way past repair. A small smile crept across my face. Good. That evening, I started clearing the house, tucked old pictures away, sorted the documents again, put Russell's notebook back where it belonged. Russell still whole, a quiet signal that I'd come full circle. Misty trailed behind me from room to room, tail flicking, eyes watchful. Even she seemed more at ease now, like the house itself had finally let out a breath. Later, I stood at the front window and watched the daylight disappear. A figure appeared on the sidewalk. Troy. No baby, no Lacey, just him, shoulders slumped, hands buried in his coat. He didn't step up to the porch, didn't knock, just stared at the house like it was some museum he used to be part of. For a second, I thought about going out there, looking him in the eye, asking, what? But I didn't. I let the silence stretch long and heavy. He stayed for a bit, shifting his weight, eyes flicking up toward the windows. He turned around slowly and walked off, his silhouette fading into the distance. I watched until he disappeared, then shut the curtains. It wasn't closure, but it was enough to keep going. The next morning, I wrapped up the paperwork with Layla. The house was officially locked into a protected trust. No loopholes, no going back. The accounts were locked down tight. The legal part was done. My life, finally back under my name. For the first time in months, I made myself tea and stirred in honey. Just a little sweetness, but it felt like something. I sat at the kitchen table, Misty curled up by my feet, and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. This wasn't some grand win. It was peace. And I'd fought like hell for every bit of it that year. The first snow showed up earlier than anyone expected. I woke up to everything outside, blanketed in white. The yard, the rooftops, the swing set that hadn't moved in weeks. Even the street looked softer. Like the snow dulled the edges of what we'd been through. Funny how nature pulls that off. Covers the wreckage, even if just for a second. I threw on my coat and boots and stepped outside into the silence. The snow crunched under my feet, fresh and clean. Misty pressed her nose to the window, watching like I was making questionable life choices. Across the street, the old Larson place sat empty with a crooked for sale sign slumping in the front yard. Another dream choked by too much risk. Maybe. I took a slow walk down the block, breath clouding in the cold. The whole street was still, calm, almost exactly what Russell and I had pictured when we first moved here. Back then, I couldn't have seen the storm coming, the betrayals, the damage, the quiet battle I'd have to fight just to keep what was ours. But I see it all clearly now. You don't ask for control, you take it back. When I got home, the mailbox was packed. Holiday cards from friends I hadn't heard from in a while, some catalogs, and stuck between them, a plain white envelope, no return address, just one sheet of paper inside, Troy's handwriting, messier than usual, uneven. You've made your point. I'm done fighting. I'm sorry. No excuses this time, no manipulation, just a limp little surrender. I folded the letter, filed it in the evidence folder, and put it away. Forgiveness, that's on my terms now, not his. Diane called that afternoon to confirm the last of the filings had gone through. The trust is sealed, she said. The house, the accounts, your position, it's all secure. And Troy, his assets were frozen. His partners had walked. The investigations were still active, but his whole operation, over. I thanked her, hung up the phone, and looked around my kitchen. This wasn't just a building anymore. It was mine. All of it. I made another cup of tea, with honey, a quiet bit of sweetness I earned. Nobody gave it to me. And standing there, watching the snow drift down outside the window, I knew this wasn't just the end of what they tried to pull. It was the beginning of what I get to claim, on my terms, clean, no apologies. People think the quiet after a storm is empty, but it's not. It's full of things clicking back into place. It's the rhythm coming back, the breath steadying, the moment you realize you're standing on solid ground again. That's what my house felt like now. Not haunted, not bruised, just steady. That's how I spent those last days of December. I moved through the house like I used to when Russell was still around. Slow, purposeful. I folded the laundry, dusted the shelves, reorganized the pantry with the same obsessive care he used to tease me about. Misty followed me from room to room, curling up in the sunlight, dozing off on clean beds. I sat down with Leela and updated my estate plan, rewrote my will, finally handled the kind of paperwork I'd put off for years, not because I was scared, because things had finally cleared up. For the first time, what I had ahead of me, and what I was leaving behind, made sense. My life, the way I had it arranged, wasn't tangled in anyone else's wants anymore. It was mine. The neighborhood eased into its usual winter groove. Holiday lights flickered on porches. Kids flopped around in the snow, making angels in front yards. And even the old Larson place got new life. A young couple with a sweet little boy and wild curls that reminded me of Troy, back before life scrambled. His priorities. I didn't hang on that thought. Some memories, like old Polaroids, are better left in the drawer. Mid-January. The investigator called with the final update. The case against Troy was airtight. Financial abuse fully documented, fraud traced, legal safeguards locked in. They won't be able to touch or challenge your estate from here on, he said. You've insulated yourself well. I thanked him, hung up, and let those words settle in. Insulated, protected, free. A couple of weeks later, Troy sent one last letter. It wasn't a plea, wasn't a threat, just scribbled, tired words on lined paper. I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything. I read it once, put it down, and felt nothing, because I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd rebuilt, quietly, without rage, without needing approval. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, grabbed Russell's old quilt from the closet, and curled up on the porch swing. The stars above were sharp and bright, the cold crisp but clean. Misty curled up beside me, her purring soft and steady. For the first time in forever, I wasn't scared of the quiet. It didn't feel hollow anymore. It felt like peace. Mine. I used to believe love meant giving everything up. That family meant bending until you broke. But I get it now. Real love doesn't drain you dry. Real family doesn't build their comfort on your silence. And real strength, it shows up when you finally stop handing over the keys to your own life. I held mine now, and I wasn't giving them back. It's quiet now, The kind of quiet that wraps around you like a blanket, not something that chokes. Funny how long the echoes of chaos can linger, but they fade. They do. The house feels different. Not because I moved things around, but because the heaviness is gone. That silent dread, that fear of misplaced trust, fake smiles, watching everything slip away, that's gone. The kitchen clock ticks steady. Misty breathes soft beside me, sound asleep. The world outside keeps turning like it always does. And me, I've stopped bracing. Stopped expecting love to come with a hook. Stopped apologizing for guarding what's mine. There's no grand finale. No standing ovation. Just calm. Hard won. Steady calm. I take a sip of tea, honey swirling in the heat. Outside, the snow glows under the moon. The swing creaks in the wind. And for the first time in years, I feel safe. No more second guessing. No more giving myself away just to keep things easy. No more pretending I don't know my own strength. This right here, it's enough. And tonight, as the house settles and the winter wind brushes the windows, I tell myself, I survived. I rebuilt. I stood my ground. And I did it all quietly. Soft as snowfall. Sharp as ice. Steady as stone. I'm a mother who once believed that love meant giving everything. That family was something you had to hold on to at all costs. Even when it hurt so much, there was nothing left to hold. But after everything I've been through, the sweet lies, the quiet betrayal from my own blood, and the kind of pain that doesn't make a sound, I've come to realize one thing. Family isn't the people who keep you close through guilt. Family is the ones who respect your boundaries, value your sacrifices, and never forget who you are. So, if it were you, if you heard your child laughing behind your back, if you found out you'd been turned into a financial stepping stone wrapped in fake affection, what would you do? Would you stay quiet and carry on, afraid to crack something that's already rotten? Or would you stand up and hold on to the one thing you still have, your self-respect? I truly want to hear your answer, and I pray God grants you clarity in the face of anything sweet that might be hiding a trap.